It's been too long since we've been away from these reviews, so I think it's time we conclude this series. I know what a review. What a lovely review we have ahead of us.
Where are you?
Salutations, my fiendish film fanatics. I am the Silver Screen Slasher, and welcome to the conclusion of Mad May.
Where are you again?
Joining me this great and powerful evening are Cinemastein and George, aka Spike Greene of the Film Geek Collective. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Good. I hope that didn't actually look like a gun. I meant to do the salute. My bad.
That's okay. Today we will be concluding the Mad Max series by looking at quite possibly the one that fans enjoyed the most, Mad Max Fury Road, released in 2015.
Sorry, I should quickly do my intro, but yes, hello guys, welcome back. I'm Cinemastein. Good to be back.
I mean, the last time we took a look at the Mad Max series, we looked at Beyond Thunderdome, and honestly, I was a little bit bummed out that we had to rush that review so quickly. Don't you agree, Stein?
Yeah, but after all, as I said before in that video, I had to reach I had a bit of a deadline, so yeah, sorry if the review was a little short. But at the same time, don't worry, my friends. Fury Road, I can definitely assure you, will be a little longer.
Yeah. High octane, high
I can
power.
definitely guarantee you that. I'm not sure about you, but on my side of it, I have quite a bit to say about it. All right.
All right. Woo.
And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this movie or have been living under a rock for the past 6 years, a little bit all history. As mentioned, the last before this film came out, the last entry in the series, Beyond Thunderdome, came out in 1985, and people had to wait 30 years for director George Miller to crank out Fury Road, which a lot of fans, after watching it, consider to be one of the not only the best film in the series, but also one of the best films of all time. Hell, at the moment, it's got 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Actually, in fact, I've got a bit of an intro before actually the main opening, before you explain the main opening of the film. Bit of history here, because once I've actually watched a little documentary series by this YouTuber who explained the history of the Mad Max series. But anyway, back when Beyond Thunderdome, of course, just came out or whatever, a little after that, George Miller instead wrote of Mad Max Fury Road, which is Mad Max 4, obviously. But still, a little while back, in fact, Fury Road wasn't going to be the next thing in his mind. Instead, he actually wanted to make even a Mad Max TV show at some point. And so, he tried to, but all I can say is it never happened. Oh, and he was actually going to select another actor to play Max in the TV show, but probably another one of the reasons why they didn't probably do that is because, just to give you an idea, that actor who was going to play Max, he ended up in a pretty bad accident.
Oof.
I believe he damaged a part of his body or something. I forgot what it was.
Ouch.
Yeah. And not in that, even a bit more outside stuff of the Mad Max series. Just real quickly, Max has also had a few video games throughout the years, but most of them are shit, I heard. Although one of them I actually have and I've played before, which is the new recent one that came out, I believe, in 2016 or something like that.
Yeah, the term you're not looking for is shit. It's roadkill.
Yeah, the video game, at least the new recent one, to me I thought it was alright. The controls though for me are a little weird, but anyway, enough about that. Now onto the favor to Fury Road during its development.
There is one other thing to note though. According to some people, Fury Road is technically a reimagining of the whole Mad Max series, aka a reboot. Some people see it that way, others see it as just a sequel to Thunderdome. Honestly,
well, first off, actually a bit of history on the development of Fury Road. There was actually going to be another version, pretty much, on one that was supposed to be with Mel Gibson, but older. And so they were going to film it once, but in Australia, but the weather got a little shitty and Oh, by the way, the guy who also who was a big fan of George Miller and his Mad Max series. But anyway, they when they got together, the guy literally said, "Oh fuck a TV show, George Miller. Why don't we just make do official development on well on Fury Road?" And I think there's a video where, or still, I think there's a few videos where you can even find the concept art and everything for Fury
Hmm.
Road. And all I can say is though, it really does look amazing. I mean, it's so cool. It even looks like a comic book because it was done by a comic book artist.
Hmm. Sounds impressive. Yeah. Not to mention, in between the big a time gap between Thunderdome and Fury Road, there were a few snags hit along the way. One of them being Mel Gibson himself. Of, 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 we all gotta admit that over time, the guy has been one of the best action stars of the 70s and 80s. But as time went on, he just went a little bit what's the word to put it? Unstable,
Racist.
bigoted.
And so I hate to say this, but at the same time, thank goodness it was good that Mel Gibson. I mean, sorry, Mel Gibson. Yeah, was pretty much was I guess I wouldn't say replaced, but his role was taken over by well, good old Tom Hardy. Yes, the guy who plays Bane and the guy who now plays Venom.
You, you know, with Mel Gibson, I was wondering what would break first. Either his spirit or his mind.
Oh,
Uh, oh, by the way, one more quick thing about Fury Road. Speaking of that thing that Silver just said, here's actually how really they put it, Silver. In some interviews, strangely, George Miller never really actually said what Fury Road actually was. He just said every time people would ask him, is it a sequel or a reboot? And he just says it's more of a visit to an old friend.
So
So
in
he
other
doesn't even
words,
really clarify. If you're wondering, is it the fourth film? Is it a reboot? He never really gave it an official answer. I'm not kidding.
so basically, I'm gonna give it the same answer I would give whenever someone would ask me if Nightmare Before Christmas is either a Christmas movie or a Halloween movie, and my answer is simple in 2 words: it's both. I consider both a reimagining and Mad Max 4, in my opinion.
But anyway, now that all that history is out of the way, I know, Silver. I think it's time. Should we discuss the first few minutes of good old Fury Road?
Uh, Without further ado, witness us as we review Mad Max Fury Road. The film, as during the opening scene, the film does feel a bit strange the way it introduces us. And honestly, I do actually like this new version of Max Rokitansky, played this time by the aforementioned Tom Hardy, who previously had been in Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. And honestly, I do kind of think he's a suitable replacement for Mel Gibson. And he manages to get down and the Max's behaviors and his personality quite well. Well, even though for most of the film he's wearing weird looking mask on his face.
Anything you have to say about it, Spike? Because I will admit we've barely heard anything from you so far.
well, who's the quiet one in Penn and Teller? Yeah, what was his name? Sorry, I keep forgetting he's the quiet one. But yeah, I was kind of like Teller or no, never mind. I was more like Silent Bob or something. Yeah, you and then I say the one big thing, and no, it's all right. I'm kidding there. Okay, so Mad Max Fury Road is something that's going to go. Actually, myself and Cinemastein actually had a discussion about how some movies are destined, even when they're new, you just know it's going to be an instant classic or something like that, or something that'll go down in history as something great.
Mm.
And
And let me
so
get one of those films.
yeah, this is one of those films. Like, I have some issues with it, and I have some issues with certain classics, and I don't think Citizen Kane's the best ever. Sorry, it's a good movie, but it's not the best.
And
But
everyone, yes, please don't go batshit insane and angry at Spike Green for literally just saying that.
Opinions are opinions, people. deal with it.
Because it is a good movie. It is. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, Mad Max Fury Road is a major turning point for action cinema, and especially because Australia hasn't really had too many, successful films as of late. Even Red Dog internationally is not too well known, even though it's known in Australia. But
Hmm.
with Mad Max Fury Road, I feel like Australia's kind of put back on the map there because all the Australians, Margot Robbie and George Miller and everyone
Sigourney
else.
Weaver?
Sigourney Weaver's not Australian. Anyway,
Mel
I was gonna say,
Gibson.
yeah, they've all gone to Hollywood, and where are the people who are still in Australia making stuff? You know?
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eventually, as Max eventually just steps onto a lizard and eats it, which honestly is kind of weird. Yeah.
Speaking
He's
of, I
eventually,
love the opening still, even to Fury Road. Wow, what an opening!
yeah, eventually he's hunted down and an ambush by a pack of what can only be described as Half-Life warriors. It's a result of nuclear fallout throughout the entire world.
Hmm.
And eventually, Max is captured, it, mostly shaved, and is eventually branded and it is property of one, the man in charge of these Half-Life World Wars, the great and terrifying Immortan Joe, played surprisingly by by someone who's familiar to the series, the late Hughes Key Byrne, previously playing Toe Cutter in the first movie.
Who, as we said before, sadly passed. God rest his soul.
Now, before we continue on, I want to ask, what do you guys think of Immortan Joe as both the character and how Hughes Key Byrne plays him?
Well, he's not mediocre. The two villains that he's played through the franchise,
Both Toe
oh,
Cutter and Immortan Joe?
yeah, Toe Cutter. For some reason, I knew it was Toe Cutter, but I confused the name with Knight Rider for just 1 second. My apologies. But yeah, Toe Cutter and Immortan Joe, he plays them somewhat differently. It's interesting to see him ravaged by time in a way, and he looks older and wiser as a villain in that way. And who knows? Maybe if the Toe Cutter lived, he became Immortan Joe in the future. That's just a theory of mine right now.
Well, think about it. Hughes Key Byrne hasn't been after playing Toe Cutter. Hughes Key Byrne didn't come back to the series for over 35 years. That's quite a big gap distance between in the first film and this one.
Immortan Joe, to me, yeah, he's a good villain, honestly. To be honest with you, most of the Mad Max villains to me are very enjoyable. Toe Cutter, yep, great, psychotic, and scary at times. Humongous, well, yeah, he can be quite scary and cool at times. Tina Turner's
Auntie Envy?
character, she was fun, and Immortan Joe. Is what if I just say, to me, in my opinion, he has an awesome ass voice and a cool
Yeah,
ass design.
yeah. I mean, seriously, the armor he wears with all the different little knickknacks extra across it, like war medals, just looks amazing.
You
From
know what
here
else
on,
is
by the
kind of
way,
amazing in his way, in a way? As I like to say, that big facility that he runs, or that big rock base, or whatever that he has.
spoiler alert, big spoiler alert.
Yep. But yeah, still,
Spoilers.
yep, spoilers. All the stuff that he has in his lair, like, all his, of course, henchmen and all the survival tools and gears and everything he has, like, even. What's weird though is one of the few things that I found was there is a room where he literally has a whole bunch of chubby women with giant titties, and well, all I can
Yeah,
say is if
that's
you have seen the movie, it's kind of weird and a bit.
yeah. In the movie, they're known as breeders, and their job is to quote unquote dispense mother's milk. I'm not going in further into that
So
tangent.
Not
maybe
only that, yeah, still, I don't know why, but I just feel like his entire base though in general is just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And he also controls the water, if you know, and like, because
Mm.
yes, he has access to water, which is one of the few things that people like Max and everyone else in general who's survived this apocalypse, right, is desperately, wanting, and like they desperately need, obviously.
So maybe we could have put that a little more delicately there. All right.
Sorry about that.
Oh, come on, it's fine, Spike. We're not going to truly
No,
explain all of it.
sorry about the. I don't know. It just sorry the whole thing about
The breeders. Yeah, we
what
get
you said
it.
titties. That's I don't know. Something feels wrong about that.
Mm.
Maybe we'll have to. Oh, never mind.
Oh,
All right, let's just continue for crying out loud.
moving on. Um, I feel like
Anyway, to put it short, Immortan Joe pretty much announces that Furiosa will be, which is played by Charlize Theron, and they are about to pretty much go on a big, I don't know, quest or whatever, and
yeah.
she takes
Basically,
a truck called the War Rig.
it's basically an apocalyptic road trip. Just to go out to get the groceries. Mainly just gas and bullets. Yes. And as Stein mentioned, and the War Rig will be driven by Imperator Furiosa, played impressively by Charlize Theron. I'm not gonna lie. Normally, I'm not a fan of of her.
Cool.
I mean, I don't dislike her. I just either barely notice her in any movie she's in, or just don't like the character she usually plays. But Furiosa is one of the major exceptions for me. She
And
plays it with so much emotion just based on facial expressions.
And what if I just say this? She just has a badass look, especially that war paint looking on.
she's no stranger to drastically changing her appearance. Not only is she like bald and shaven in this movie with the that stuff and the robot arm, but I believe back in Monster in 2003, she played serial killer Aileen Wuornos, who she put on weight and she deliberately presented herself as not Hollywood glamorous, if you know it. Like I'm not saying that as disrespecting or anything. It's just Hollywood has a ridiculous beauty standard, and yeah, like
Yeah, I get
Hollywood
what you
is
mean.
too perfect. Yeah, yeah.
I see what you mean.
Anyway, here's to pretty much summing up the plot and just, of course, in a quicker way. And what's so genius about this film, though, in a way, is that it's all one big chase for most of the time. It's
Yeah.
just, it's literally a giant chase. When I heard the plot for this mostly, I thought, okay, well, admit, strange, but a little different for the Mad Max series, but
Hmm.
I wonder how they're going to do that. And surprisingly, they do it well. Like, the pacing is good, and it's just the way it's done. At times as well, I will admit, there are times where it can be a little slow, but not very slow, but still, like, where there are some calm moments and with the non-chase scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just so great. Even just the movie's pacing and everything. It feels so right.
Two
Oh,
things to note.
speaking of, Furiosa was so good in this film that I'm not even kidding, Mad Max fans. She's literally getting her own standalone film real
Hmm.
soon. I believe by next year.
Yeah. Two things I want to note about the whole plot of the film. One, the entire chase scene is very eerily similar to. Think of it this way: it's like the chase scene from Road Warrior, but done better. Two, the best way I can describe this movie is Mad Max meets a Roadrunner cartoon. Basically there's little to no basically you got memorable characters, little to no dialogue between them, and nothing but chase scenes. That's what Fury Road is to me. It's Mad Max and a Roadrunner cartoon.
That is actually a really good comparison in a way. I like it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and not only that, I think the next thing we should now get on to, because I really want to talk about this, and that is the action. Um,
Oh yes, by far
the
one of the
action
best
is
things in the
fucking
entire film.
incredible. If you guys haven't seen it, just no offense, but what are you doing? See it? It's amazing. And
Like,
warning, I'm telling you right now, all the crashes and explosions that you see, not all the effects are like this, but still all the explosions and things like that, they're all real and practical. They're not fake. They're literally all practical.
Mm-hmm.
Because just to give you an idea, I've even seen some behind the scenes footage of it, and you literally see them do that stuff.
Yeah,
the The only,
Occasionally, though, the backgrounds do have to be made digital, though.
the only CG is the sandstorm and Charlize Theron's arm and perhaps the color grading, but that's it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. One thing that does, another little part that does tie into the action is probably one of the biggest parts about the movie. The vehicles themselves, guys. I mean, seriously. Hey, George Miller must have had a creative streak when he was creating all those bad
Speaking of,
boys.
I was actually about to say, to me, in my opinion, no offense to the vehicles in the older films, but let's just admit the vehicles in this one are just a whole lot better. In fact, maybe better than they've ever been.
Yeah, and I
If
will
you want,
admit
I actually have a favorite type of vehicle in this film. If you're wondering which one mine's favorite, my one is it's the one with all the spikes, the little hot rod with all the spikes. I don't know why, but just
hmm,
that one looks so fucking badass.
yeah,
I
I
love
will admit. Oh, oh,
the Tiger.
I do have a personal favorite vehicle aside from Mad Max's V8. It's the one. It's basically the one with all the spikes on it. So I meant the one with the speakers. That one.
Yeah, that's my one too, I would say.
Yeah, and seriously though, that vehicle is just any guitar player's dream.
Speaking of,
It,
Immortan Joe doesn't need any music in his car like a little radio because he's pretty much got a giant radio following him, which
Yeah,
is
true,
known as
awesome.
the Doof
always.
Wagon.
I
Yeah,
mean, if you stand too close to a speaker during when you're performing, like won't you go deaf? I'm surprised the guitar guy didn't go deaf because they're literally right behind him, going really loudly. How is he not going to suffer some sort of ear damage? You know?
yeah, and not to mention the man rigged up to this crazy wagon, and known as Coma the Doof Warrior, blind since birth. He's worn a mask made from the dried skin of his murdered mother's screaming face.
Oh,
Yes, and in this film, he's actually played by an Australian musician known as Iota. And one other thing to mention: the electric guitar he plays, it's also a goddamn flamethrower.
Which is even
That
more awesome.
that is the most badass musical instrument I have ever seen.
Oh, almost forgot, but even the action scene with Furiosa and Max slash one of Immortan Joe's goons that later on becomes one of the main characters of the film. But anyway, they pretty much have a triple fight scene, if you know, like all three of them go at it, which is so cool. Just the
Oh
way it's
yeah,
pasted and
right.
everything, it's just
Oh
so
yeah, I
damn
believe
good.
you're referring to Nux, played by Nicholas Holt.
Yep. Oh, and I
Uh,
also must say, I love Furiosa's war cry. Ah! It's just, oh, I'm not good at
yeah,
it, but
yeah,
dang,
just a
it sounds
simple.
badass.
Seriously, that is by far one of the most badass war cries ever.
Yeah. And now I want to also get to a bit of the, well, computer effects. And one of my favorite, or probably even my favorite, would literally have to be the sandstorm. That scene in general. Oh my gosh, that is so
Oh,
breathtakingly beautiful. Mwah.
it's beautiful. Uh, never, never before has, not since Brendan Fraser's The Mummy has sand been more terrifying.
and not to mention the red parts during the scenes and the flashes of the black and white against the I Live Again, and oh man, I think that's every bit as I think that's even more spectacular than the fact that some chunks of the film are seemingly have this blue tint over them.
It is
Now,
just absolutely beautiful,
Mm.
and just just out of curiosity, if you really want to challenge yourself, try watching the black and chrome version of Fury Road.
Oh,
yeah, I
okay.
don't have that version, unfortunately. But I heard it looks pretty good, actually. The next thing I feel like now we should get to is even what I like to call even some of the other characters in this film. First, I want to start off with Immortan Joe's wives. And if you're wondering why I said not wife
Oh yeah,
and just wives, because he literally has more than one. To me, at the same time, they're kind of interesting, don't you think?
yeah, they each have their own different, they each have their own different personalities, even though they have very weird names. For instance, one is known as the Splendid Angerad, played by Rosie Huntington Whiteley. And seriously, the Splendid Angerad? That is by far one of the silliest names I can think of.
Well, I mean, that everyone has crazy names in Mad Max, you know. I
And
mean,
no offense to
Furiosa.
those, and you know what's weird?
That's
Because I
that's
just want to
true.
let you
I
know,
mean, they're
guys, Immortan Joe is kind of not really that good looking in the movie. No offense to Yuki's Burn, but I think that's kind of the idea anyway. But
yeah.
his wives, they're amazing looking, unlike him.
Then again, yeah. Although then again, there is a character in the movie named Rictus Erectus.
Okay, that's funny.
I mean, come on. Come on. Come on, guys. That name's almost as dumb as Biggest Dickus.
Another one of the characters that I find interesting is, as I like to call, Immortan Joe's second in command. That really big, bald guy, whatever his name is, with the oxygen tanks for some reason attached to him.
Yeah. And for the love of me, I'm trying to remember what that guy's name is, but I'm having a hard time actually thinking of what his name was.
Do you mean the shorter guy in the chair who appears every so
No,
often?
no, the big guy with the machine gun.
Oh.
Speaking of, that little guy actually obviously has a disability in real life, and it's nice that
Oh my!
at times they kind of
Oh,
assist him with moving.
now I get it. That was Rictus Erectus. No kidding. That thing. That
I'm
is a.
sorry, that name. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
but Rick. Yeah, sorry. Let's just call him Rictus for the moment. Rictus, played by Nathan Jones, is actually the secondary antagonist of the movie, as well as Immortan Joe's youngest
Look at
son.
Spike, he can't even take it.
Seriously, even when I just call him Rictus.
Erectus. I'm sorry.
Would you prefer it if I just called him Rick?
The other person who I surprisingly even love quite a bit more than ever in this film as well is Max, because a few things. First off, one thing that it really interests me is the part where he starts to have these weird visions of these people that
Yeah.
and they pretty much go into his head and say, "How could you kill us? And you left us to die and everything." And I'm like,
Yeah, that
who
does
are
make a
they
bit of a
though? Were they
question.
people that he tried to once save but unfortunately couldn't save, or maybe good friends of his, or maybe even his family? Who are
Yeah.
they?
Oh, that does bring up something interesting. None of the people we see in these little flashes in his head, none of them are his family. Think of it. No wife, no baby son, and none of them are any characters we see in the previous films. So
Which is
obviously
what
these
makes
are
it
other people.
interesting though, because we've never met them, but they seem like they knew Max.
Yeah, and that does make it interesting to find out. I mean, there is a lot of symbolism when it comes to this movie. The way it shows how certain people will just rule the earth. And like one guy in charge of water, one guy in charge of all the gas, one guy in charge of all the bullets. It shows that in this this no pun intended mad world that there is some sort of society that's trying to be broken by a few lone rebels.
I feel like the Mad Max universe in general has been developed even more than ever by the sounds of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
No offense to the other three films, they're still great in their own right, but this one really does take it to a new level. Especially so who are those people on the stilts in the swamp like? And especially like since the swamp is such a like isolated place and it doesn't look like there's many people around there. How
Maybe they
long
were
have they
humans
been
that
living
mutated
there?
too
How do
far.
they even survive there? And especially, and probably the most important thing is what the hell are they doing there? And because they're just so interesting, even they get no character development. I'm just still so interested in them.
Yeah. Not to mention one other thing to note about Max is that he doesn't actually speak for most of the film. I mean
Like,
the amount of sorry, you first, Spike.
like
Your turn,
yeah, that's
Spike.
Seriously, is this going to be who goes first thing?
he's on first. What's on second? Others on third. Yeah, the old comedy routine. Whoops. Okay. Anyway, yeah, go on.
Anyway, for most of the film, Max doesn't really speak. I mean, he has about the same amount of dialogue as he does in the original movie, which is almost none at all.
Oh yeah, I think he speaks more in number one than he does in two or four. I think He speaks most in 1, and he speaks least in 2, and I think maybe he has a bit more to say in 4.
Yeah, it does also. It does also bring up a very interesting. Yeah. Also, that muzzle he wears around his face. I'm pretty sure part of it used to be a garden trowel.
Oh yeah.
Given the fork-looking positions it made. Sorry, a garden fork, not garden trowel. What am I thinking?
Oh, I almost forgot one of the few reasons now what also makes this film, I should now dare say, maybe even kind of famous now, and that is its great iconic lines like "Witness me" or "I
Oh, what
live,
a
I
lovely
die,
day!
I live again," or probably and things even like "mediocre" and
V8.
the best one of them all. Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
I actually knew there's someone on Twitter who I know didn't really care that much for, say, the first movie, but she loved the fourth movie.
Huh.
Speaking of, I just now wanted to ask Silver and Spike, both of you guys, what do you think of the lines in this film?
They
Well,
all of them are iconic, and honestly, the whole they just make it more chaotic.
not much that's particularly memorable apart from the 3 or 4 lines, but then again, it's not really a film that's that much about dialogue. Like, it's mostly visual storytelling with the crashes and the explosions and the
And the
explosions, man.
atmosphere.
Yeah, the atmosphere too. I'm not sure how it would work in black and white because I feel like the color is, it is good to tell the story with the color in this case. I don't know how
Yeah,
black and white would work because,
the black and chrome
for one,
version is basically just. Yeah, I consider the black and chrome version to just be a challenge for some people to try.
yeah. But for one, the green, like someone pointed out when in a video I was watching that the green place, people would be saying the green place, and you'd be seeing the film in black and white. So, where would you see the green place?
Hmm.
Oh, just one quick thing I also want to mention, but in one part near the last few minutes of the film, I believe, or still somewhere near the end, kind of, Yuriosa anyway comes across this group of women, right? And one of them is on this electrical tower, naked, and I'm like, no offense, but what the hell is she doing in extreme hot weather, right, with no clothes on? Like, what the hell?
I
Actually,
To put it delicately, I think she might have been trapped there by potentially a villain.
actually, I'm assuming she was just a decoy, just in case anyone from Morton Joe's pack actually he found them and haven't discovered them. She was the decoy. And meant to and warn the others. Yes. And then comes the and then after traveling for so long and so many people getting blown up in the process, it's as eventually our heroes decide to make a trek back home, back to where they started actually, and and so many of the main characters die in this film. Heck, heck, heck. Uh, uh, just a heads up, no pun intended. And, and one of everyone Joe's wives that was previously mentioned, Splendid, does actually get run over.
Mm.
Yeah.
Especially what makes it so sad and kind of a bit extreme the way her death scene is filmed. Because guess what? She was pregnant, her character.
And I
Yeah.
believe they do take the baby out later, and the baby is
Especially the
also.
part where the guy cut up, open her tummy. Ugh.
Mm.
Yeah. Not to
Thankfully, you
mention,
don't actually see it. You just kind of hear him doing
yeah,
it.
it's basically basically the baby is dead off screen, but the guy that pulled it out, played by Jai Courtney, he does mention that. And
That
apparently
was
the baby boy
Courtney.
was perfect. Hmm?
That was Jai Courtney. Wow.
Yep. 1 year, 1 year before he one of his most iconic roles, Captain Boomerang in Suicide Squad. Uh, anyway, eventually, in order to make it back, Nux, who has been constantly popping up all over the film, finally manages to redeem himself up to the gates of Valhalla by sacrificing himself just to stop Rictus from getting any closer to them. And eventually, Furiosa and Max make it back into Morton Joe's paradise after he's axed off.
Especially two things about that last few minutes, though, that final battle. First off, is the way Furiosa kills Immortan Joe. She grabs him by his little breather mask and says, "Remember me." And still, the
Yeah,
way she even sounds, it just sounds so badass.
yeah,
Not only
and
that, the way Immortan Joe's death scene is, whoa, it is gory but awesome.
bloody hell. I mean, seriously, his breathing apparatus is hooked to a chain and thrown into the tire, and then his entire jaw just gets ripped off.
Oh yeah.
Bloody hell, that's amazing.
Oh, and one last thing, I'm not gonna lie, the way I forgot that big guy's name again, but
Rictus
Nux's death though,
Erectus.
well, it is kind of sad and cool at the same time.
Yeah, and
And for one last time, with his dying breath, pretty much he says, "Witness me."
Wasn't there a villain that got his, the skin from his stomach just ripped away?
I'm not sure that was the people eater. Well,
Yeah,
it was
see
either that or
that
the bullet
stuff.
farmer. Yeah, the point is, Max and Furiosa make it back to Joe's Haven, and eventually just open the floodgates for the water to give water to everyone. And the movie just ends with Furiosa and Max and Joe. With Immortan Joe's personal vehicle being lifted up back into the Haven, and Max staying behind with the rest of the people. His name is Max, and his world will always be fire
Oh, one
and
more quick
blood.
thing I wanted to say. Of course, spoiler warning still, but in one part, what I also like about the last few minutes of that scene, Max, of course, slowly and gets out of the car or whatever, and on top of the vehicle, he shows a dead what a dead Morton Joe looks like, and he pulls off this white sheet, and real quickly we see Morton Joe's face or what's left of it, and I'm like, oh, ho, ho, ho,
Ooh, nasty.
what a nasty but awesome scene. And I still
Mm-hmm.
even just like the way he chucks his dead corpse onto the ground, just like a badass.
Fatality, flawless victory.
Yeah.
I
What
had to
happened?
throw in a combat thing there.
Yeah. Anyway, that was Mad Max Fury Road, and by God, 6 years later, it's still as amazing as it was as it first came out.
Yeah,
8
and
out of
what's
10
so
for me.
crazy is Silver told me this is a 6-year-old movie. For a 6-year-old movie, that is not bad.
Yeah. Not to mention,
Still holds up really well.
yeah. Not to mention, apparently it also won 6 Academy Awards. No joke. Okay. And I'm not. As for my final thoughts on the film, I don't really have much negativity for this film. This is by far a really biased film, so not gonna be biased. I'm giving Mad Max Fury Road 10 out of 10.
Before I
Whoa.
give my rating though, I have also one more bit of history for you guys. But did you actually know that Max actually existed in the Aboriginal stories, if you know him? Like
Oh.
he was an actual character that the Aboriginals knew. Because one day George Miller came across these Aboriginals, and he told them, "Can we film a Mad Max film anyway?" Right? Somewhere in their area, and they said, "In fact, we've actually heard of the stories of Max. Like the character of Max actually exists in their stories." And when I
So,
found that out, I'm like, no effing way. That is
By God, that's
amazing.
well,
impressive.
remember I think there's like different groups of Aboriginal people. So, any particular one that came from?
Uh, no, sorry, I can't really say, but all I know is that he does exist at least in, one of them.
Hmm.
Well, anyways, all I can say is just some Aboriginals have heard of the character of Max in their stories.
Hmm.
But yeah, now my official rating for the film. To me, this film is so good as well that there's nothing in this film that I hated. I mean, there's just not one thing I could find that I just don't like. I mean, it's just so amazing and so incredibly badass that the same's for me, like what Silver said. 10 out of 10. Nothing wrong with it, just great. Love it.
And here's where I'll divert because I'm gonna give it an 8.
Hmm.
Interesting you would say that. I'm curious why.
Can you explain?
Well, okay. So I have some minor pacing issues with in like mainly during between the second and third act, kind of. You know what I mean? But I feel like sometimes it drags on just a little too long. The pacing in general is good, but overall, maybe there could be a bit of tightening, maybe. But yeah, also, yeah, that's my only real complaint about the film. But it was enough to drag it down a bit. And also, I would have liked if there were more traditional, character developments for Max and Furiosa. I get what they were trying to do with the more experimental approach in a way, but at the same time, I didn't feel like they were fully fleshed out. As good as the movie is, I have those problems.
Hmm.
I
Well,
can respect that.
well, as the saying goes, no movie is perfect.
Hmm.
Speaking of which, next time, um, um, it's gonna um, there'll be a bit of scheduling conflict given that I'll be taking a slight trip to hell for the next week.
Oh,
But but when I come back, I will be dragging I'll be dragging from its pits one of the worst movies to mock. And
oh
speaking
my.
of strap it, strap yourselves in, and don't and always make sure to be careful because next time it's a movie mockery, and it's gonna be Dr. Seuss's The Cat in the Hat.
Brace
Until
yourselves, my
then,
friends.
until then, enjoy yourselves and always just be kind to one another.
Before you end the video as well, Silver, that yes, that was Mad May, everyone. We hope you enjoyed it, and it's been a pleasure even explaining our thoughts and history and all that sort of stuff with you guys on the Mad Max series. We hope you enjoyed it, and please support Silver, Screen Slasher, and of
Yeah.
course me and Spike.
Be
And
sure to like. Yeah. Be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to like this video and one other thing. If you like this video, like it, and if you want to support the channel even more, please subscribe. I
And turn the
haven't
bell
said
on
it in
for
the past,
notifications.
but please do. Also, I'll be leaving links for my friends' channels both in the comments or in the comments. So until then, I'll see you soon, my friends. Goodbye.
bye bye.